Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Factory, episode 2. This is our running back preview. I'm joined by the King of the South, Mintzy, showing off the guns.
Sun's out, guns out.
Right to bear arms. There you go. And we got Moody behind the sticks. How we doing?
Run it back for running backs.
There we go. How we feeling, boys, about this running back crop? We just did our fantasy preview for quarterbacks. We started with Josh Allen, who's pretty much I guess for Moody, he's most people's QB1. Let's start with Christian McCaffrey for the running backs. Is he a 1-1 pick in every draft, regardless of format? Where do you sit with Christian McCaffrey?
He's 1-1 in every single draft. Just since he's gone to San Francisco with that Shanahan offense, I mean, it's literally like you get two players.
Mm-hmm.
He's like a running back with the rushing stats, and he's like a wide receiver.
Yep.
And that's half point PPR. Full PPR is, obvious 1-1.
Yep.
But I think half point is 2. There are some concerns. They're saying he has a calf thing right now. I don't even know if he has a calf thing right now. I think they're just holding him out. I actually, conspiracy theory, think that he's not even hurt. The one thing about him, though, look, he's been really healthy since he's been in San Francisco. They've been running him to the ground.
Yep.
People are just starting to forget about his extensive injury history in Carolina, and he couldn't stay on the field for 2 to 3 seasons.
Yep. And
so that's my one concern. But having said that, he's just too good. He's too good. And the gap between him at 1 and 2 is just so massive. And he's also in an offense that scores a crap ton of points. So I'm Christian McCaffrey 1-1 all the way, and I'm just crossing my fingers he can stay healthy.
So he's been healthy his last 2 seasons. He was traded from Carolina to San Francisco mid-year in 2022. He played 16 games. Last year played 16, sat the last game. So full seasons in both. But yeah, the seasons before that, 7 games, 3 games, and then outside of that, he's been healthy. But certainly, anytime you look at a running back at his age, and he's 28 years old, you get a little concerned because that 27, 28-year-old mark tends to be when guys start to go downhill, and he certainly handled his fair share of touches last year, 272 carries, along with 67 receptions, so certainly getting up there for touches. I have him ranked as 1-1. I don't think you can realistically put anyone else up here. When you look at his just sheer numbers in half-point PPR, he was the number 1 running back, 324 points. The next guy, RB2, 242 points. So we're looking at a massive cavernous difference, 82-point difference between RB1 and RB2. He's a name brand. RB2 was also Raheem Mostert, and most people expect him to take a giant step back this year with the emergence of Cheah. So you're looking at, between RB1 and RB3, a 100-point difference. So I feel like Christian McCaffrey, no matter what, even if he misses 2 or 3 games, I think he's going to be the number 1 running back. I think he's the only choice. Moody, where do you sit on Christian McCaffrey?
No doubt. He's the number 1 choice. I think there will be some slight regression because this is a Super Bowl caliber team. They expect to be making a deep playoff run. Yep. I don't think they're going to run him into the ground as much in weeks 3 and 4 early in the season. So I think you'll probably see a few less touches for Christian McCaffrey. Yep. Even with a few less touches, he's going to be running back number 1. So you take him number 1, you pray he stays healthy, and then you celebrate when you win your championship at the end of the year.
Yeah, he's just a complete game changer. And yeah, if it's PPR, absolutely. If he's half PPR, yes. If he's standard, I still would. If it's a super flex league, you can maybe make an argument if you need a quarterback, but Christian McCaffrey is going to be awfully hard to pass up based on just the positional drop-off.
Yeah, I remember last year's, you do all your parlays for DraftKings, and we're proud DK partners here, and going to be doing a lot of DFS with the FFF pod. He would be like minus 400 to score touchdowns.
Yeah.
You'd still throw him in your parlays every week because he literally would just score every week.
Automatic. Yeah, so he's great. But who do you guys have as your RB2? Because now the discussion, everyone's going to have Christian McCaffrey RB1, but now discussion is who is that second guy? Because I don't think that there's necessarily a unanimous RB2, although there are a couple options. Mintzy, who you got?
Man, so this is the biggest debate, is like you said, this drop. And this is also fascinating when it comes to drafting, because I'm not confident enough in any of these guys to spend the 5th or 6th overall pick on them. Because, right now the standard rankings have Breece Hall and Bijan fighting for it, Jonathan Taylor, a bunch of guys. God, this is so brutally tough. But I'm drinking the Kool-Aid on the Taylor bounce back, which I know is a dicey thing. But I think the fact that Anthony Richardson's in there is so good for the running game.
I agree.
And, I think Indy's got a real good offensive line, and they're going to just be as long as Richardson's the quarterback, they're going to try to not throw more than 20 times a game. They're going to try to run the crap out of the ball. And Evan Richardson in the zone read, whenever you have a quarterback like that can run, it opens it up for the running game. I know Taylor's been a little nicked up, and I'm not saying because I have him ranked second, I'm drafting him 5th overall. But I believe as long as Richardson's playing quarterback, that's great for Taylor's stats. And I also like Shane Steichen a lot.
Expand on that. So if we're talking about just standard half-point PPR, 1 QB league with 2 running backs on a flex, where are you drafting RB2? Because Christian McCaffrey's going 1-1. But then how far of a drop before you pull the trigger on an RB2?
If I'm like in a 12-team league, if I have like the 10th or 11th pick, I'm looking to get 1 running back and probably 1 receiver with those 2 picks. But my thing is, the big thing when looking at this draft this year, there's too many questions about these top running backs to take them 5, 6 overall, and I'd rather take a stud receiver that I feel like is just a way, way higher floor.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's just a graveyard. And Stephen Shea, the no RB theory, you've said this for years, there's a graveyard for fantasy football teams on taking those mid-first round running backs and them not working out, and then it just destroys your season. And so and I also think, and we'll get into this, a lot more running back depth this year than meets the eye.
Agreed. Moody, where you got?
Depends on format, right? PPR, half point, standard. This is the one spot where it really matters for these running backs. I hate that Mintz and I think alike, but I also have Jonathan Taylor at number 2. I will not be spending a first-round pick on Jonathan Taylor, but I think that he returns to form. He was really good the last few games of the season, 88 yards on like 18 carries per game. You'll take that. I think he is back fully healthy. And just to elaborate on all the things that Mintz said, like the offensive line's good. This is a great situation for Jonathan Taylor. He is someone I'd be comfortable with if he falls to me in the middle of the second round, which could happen. But I'm not going to spend a top 10 pick on him, but I do have him as my running back too.
Last thing I want to chime in on, Zach Moss put up huge stats for Indy when Taylor was out last year, and so that shows how good their running game is.
Yeah. Right now he's ADP 6 for running backs. I am a little bit more conventional here. I'm going with a guy who's 3rd in ADP, and that is Breece Hall. I was banging the drum for him last year. He was not as healthy as I would have liked, and the Jets just completely fell apart on offense with Zach Wilson at quarterback. Breece Hall was kind of a do-everything guy. He finished just shy of 1,000 yards, but what I liked, 95 targets, 76 receptions, just under 600 yards. So he's right just under 1,600 yards. And with an improved offense, I expect him to grow in that role. You're not going to be able to stack the box with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. You're just simply not. He's going to throw it over your head. Their offensive line is greatly improved. Olufashano looked pretty good in his first preseason action. They signed Tyron Smith, who hopefully can stay healthy. Elijah Vera Tucker should be back. So a lot of good things happening up front for the Jets. And I think this is a spot where you can get Breece Hall. I do like him as RB2. I would be comfortable investing a first-round pick at Breece Hall. I wouldn't probably go in the top half of the first round because you're looking at McCaffrey, and then I would look at those receivers in a standard 1-quarterback league. That being said, if we're talking about picks 7 through 12, I would be comfortable with Breece Hall. I think he's that good. He finished as RB 7 last year, 214.5 fantasy points, but he's really not far off the RB2 throne. So Breece Hall, improved offense, and they're going to score way more with Aaron Rodgers and Zach Wilson.
Was the touchdown number should go up.
Yeah, the touchdown number should go way up. So I have Breece Hall as RB2, and I'm comfortable with a late first-round pick, a mid to late first-round pick. I was going to ask you guys both about Jonathan Taylor, but you guys are both pretty high on him, both obviously at RB2. Let's talk about other running backs in new places. So we got Derrick Henry in Baltimore, Saquon Barkley in Philadelphia, Josh Jacobs in Green Bay, Tony Pollard in Tennessee. What guys stand out to you as guys that can make a difference in their new spot, or guys that are just going to kind of fade into black?
I feel like we've had this talk. It's funny because we've been doing this pod a few years now, Shay, and we've had this Derrick Henry talk every single year.
Yeah, that's
true.
We've
had it every year because it's like running back. Everyone else slows down as they hit 30, but Derrick Henry is he's just not a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he is born to wear a Baltimore Ravens jersey, and I love this situation for him because the Titans had one of the worst 2-0 offensive lines in pro football. He got hit at the line of scrimmage more than any running back. They had no passing game threat. He had no help. He still managed to be like not great last year, but pretty decent. And when I look at him putting on that Ravens jersey, I'm seeing 15 touchdowns. I mean, if he can stay healthy, he's going to score a ton of touchdowns in this offense. The Ravens' offensive line may not be like super elite anymore, but it's still good. You have the threat of Lamar in the passing game and Lamar running the ball. I just think this is like a rejuvenation career spot. And until this guy shows he's a human being, I just have to see him slow down to believe it. And, you know, he's also coming from, you know, a bad situation in Tennessee with them struggling. Now he's going to be on a Super Bowl team. It's amazing the jolt that gives people. And so I've got Derrick Henry number 5. Got him cracking my top 5. Only thing with him, though, full point PPR takes a big hit because he's not going to catch the most passes.
Yeah. I forgot one. Joe Mixon in there as well. We're just on him. New environment in Houston.
I mean, Houston scores a lot of points because of C.J. Stroud and stuff, but Joe Mixon, the Stephen Shea term you hear in the NFL, the Jag, just a guy. He's just a guy.
So it's very surprising. I was not very high on Joe Mixon going into this. Doing more research, he finished RB6 last year, which is very surprising to me because I don't ever remember him having just like a monster game where maybe one, but like he never stood out to me as like a guy who's like, oh wow, he's ripping off giant runs and really putting the team on his back. Certainly an improved offense, or I don't want to say improved offense because Cincinnati was good, but last year obviously Burrow hurt. They had their share of injuries. The Texans are firmly on an ascending team. I'm not really sure how confident I am in Joe Mixon. I have him personally as RB20, which is very low. Moody, where do you stand on these guys? New places, new faces.
My favorite guy in a new place is Saquon Barkley. He is stepping into the best situation he's ever been in. He's had Daniel Jones in front of him in that offensive line. I mean, Saquon Barkley has been running into walls his entire career, except for early in his career when they would find any kind of space and he'd take off for a touchdown. I'm hoping to see a little bit more of that in Philadelphia. I understand you got Hurts, who's going to definitely score some touchdowns in the red zone. That's going to hurt him just a bit. But Saquon catches the ball to the backfield. I think you're going to see a return to some of that PPR form for Saquon Barkley. And if the health is there, I think Barkley is going to take a big step forward because he's not playing for the freaking Giants here, man. He's on an elite offense, and I think he has something to prove here. And I think the Eagles want to make him happy, especially him coming over from the Giants.
Okay. I'll touch on Saquon a bit later. One guy I do want to talk about is Josh Jacobs, who goes from the Raiders to the Packers. And while it may seem like an upgrade on the surface because he's going from a bad team to a good team, I actually don't think this helps his fantasy relevance at all. He is going to be the starter, and he's going to get carries. But Green Bay, if you look at it for the past few years, they've split carries. Like Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon have been the guys. A.J. Dillon is back. They also drafted Marshawn Lloyd out of USC. They drafted him in the 3rd round. I think it was like the 88th pick, something like that. So they certainly have an investment in not only Josh Jacobs, but in their entire run game. Matt LaFleur, this is what he does. It's a running back by committee. He is not a guy I am touching in the first like dozen or so running backs off the board. Right now, his ADP is 10. I absolutely hate that. I have him as running back 16, and that's maybe just, I have him right around like Raheem Mostert, who's also going to be in an obvious timeshare in Miami with everyone healthy. Tony Pollard, Ramondre Stevenson, Zamir White, I have him in that category. I am absolutely not buying Josh Jacobs stock at the current price.
Okay, my thing on him, I don't have him as far down as you do. I get what you're saying though, because the Green Bay running back situation it's been very hard to read. The one thing I will say on Jacobs' behalf, they gave him 4 years, $48 million. I mean, they're going to use him some if they paid him that kind of money.
They paid Aaron Jones very similar money, and all Aaron Jones shareholders wanted to see more Aaron Jones, and just never came. So certainly I agree. Money talks, and Josh Jacobs could be in line for a ton of carries, but based on historical stuff with Green Bay and Matt LaFleur, I'm skeptical at that price.
I'm a little worried about his body too because he had some injuries last year. Yep. He led the NFL in rushing 2 years ago. I've got him 13th, so I'm not sitting here saying I'm huge on him. I'm just a little higher on him than you. Okay. I have one thing that's been interesting though. We were going through Jim Moody and I were going through dress. I mean, he's going late 4th round. Some of these guys, starting running back. I wouldn't have any problem. I'm not saying I'm in love with Jacobs, but if he was my number 2 running back, I've seen worse things.
My problem with I don't want to say older, but most of these guys are older when you look at, Mixon. Saquon's not super old, but he is getting there. Derrick Henry, obviously very old. New running backs in new places. Like, if they were really any good, like, I feel like their old team would have hung on to them. Like Josh Jacobs, this team is going to run the ball with Zamir White. They have an opportunity. Josh Jacobs is in-house. They know what he's made of. And they're like, not interested. That's concerning. Same thing with Joe Mixon. Like, the Bengals couldn't get a Joe Mixon deal done. Like, if he was really that guy, he would have gotten paid. He would have stayed there. They didn't think he was super necessary. And, like, just watching him last year, he was not very efficient. He was more of a volume play. So I would be worried about that. The only one that I think is a perfect fit, and you touched on, is Derrick Henry. He's going to a perfect situation in Baltimore where they want to run the football unless it's the AFC Championship game. They want to run the football. They want to do it a lot, and they're going to have the lead a lot. And there is no real threat to him as far as someone taking away touches like Keaton Mitchell. Devastating knee injury towards the end of last season. He's going to be out for quite a bit. I do expect him to return this season, but
well, he was such a game breaker in speed. I wonder how that's going to be affected, because that was the thing that made him so unique.
Absolutely. So as far as devastating knee injuries, we have to talk about Nick Chubb and where he is, because he is consistently, easily, put it in pen, top 10 fantasy running back every single year. But obviously coming off a knee injury, which it happened, I think it was in September or early October.
It was the Monday night game. It was that Pittsburgh game, start of the year. I think it was the doubleheader Monday night game.
Oh, okay.
That was week 2, because it was that in Saints Carolina, because we were watching it in the gambling cave.
Yeah.
The thing about that knee injury, though, usually you just say a torn ACL, it's something people bounce back from. He tore everything.
Yep.
I mean, he had one of those. It was ACL, MCL, devastating. But still some stuff to like here. He's already squatting like 600 and something pounds. I mean, he's ready to come back now. They're going to hold off on that, as they should. Cleveland's got a damn good offensive line. They like to run the ball. I think, like, one strategy that I like, and I think all three of these people in this room like, if you consider yourself a good owner and you know how to manage a team, there's always value in taking a flyer in the 8th round or 10th round, stashing a guy like this. Because
this happens every year. There's always a guy, DeAndre Hopkins suspended for 6 weeks.
If you get Nick Chubb coming back week 9 or week 10, and you're plugging him into your running back core, making a run toward a championship, that's certainly an ace in the hole you'd love to have.
Yep. Be very aware of your IR settings, injury reserve settings. When you Nick Chubb should qualify for that based on him being injured, but make sure you're aware of that if you do have it, which I assume you do. Moody, where do you sit on Nick Chubb?
So something I'm considering in my guillotine league is taking Ford and then Nick Chubb a little bit later.
Okay.
And so that way, let Ford run it for the early part of the season, hopefully get Nick Chubb back and make a run, if I'm still alive in the guillotine league, that is. But it's something I am considering. Ford, nothing special there, but he's going to have pretty good volume. I'm willing to take a chance on that late in the draft.
Yeah. Let's stay in they're not in the AFC North anymore, but a couple AFC North guys are playing in California now. The Chargers backfield. We got J.K. Dobbins. We got Gus Edwards. What is going on there? What do you make of that? Are any of these guys draftable for you? Under Jim Harbaugh, a guy who no doubt is going to run the football a ton.
Yeah, no, Gus Edwards, like I said, talking about the running back depth thing, Gus Edwards' props is like 600 and something yards this year. Mm-hmm. And whatever his touchdown prop is, I like the over. You can look at Harbaugh's first year back in San Francisco when he went with Alex Smith and turned them into a physical running team during the Frank Gore era. Mm-hmm. And, man, they're going to run the ball. And they took the Notre Dame Joe Alt, beast left tackle. Yep. Like I said, you look at their receiving core earlier. I mean, it's kind of dusty. You're going to see them be physical and play defense. And so, when I look at the Dobbins thing is just – he's just had so many injuries. Maybe he could be the number 2 change of pace guy, but, it's going to be Edwards at the goal line for sure, and I think Edwards is the guy to rely on more. I'm not sitting here saying I'm taking him as an RB2, but I'd love to have him as my, RB4 for depth and have him as a plug-in guy because I think he could be solid there.
Yeah. Moody, what do you think about this Chargers backfield?
It's interesting, no doubt about it. I'm a big Gus Edwards believer. Great downhill runner. I do think he's going to get a lot of touches here, and the value's there. You're getting him pretty late, so I have no problem with Gus Edwards. I don't love it by any means, but if you miss out on some of the guys you liked early, Gus Edwards would be a pretty good fill-in guy.
Yeah. I am not super big on it's one of these backfield that's going to be diversified. Mm-hmm. I don't think you're going to see Gus Edwards be like a 1,300 yard, 10 touchdown type guy. I don't think he's going to be, he somewhat looks like Derrick Henry as far as weight. I don't anticipate him having like a Derrick Henry type workload. I think this could be a committee with Dobbins, with Gus Edwards, with a bunch of new guys. So I wouldn't invest a lot of premium fantasy real estate in them. That being said, if we're talking about, the 9th round and 8th round, and you see Gus Edwards, who, is slated to start on a run-heavy team, that's about the time where I'd pull the trigger on one of those guys. But I'm not buying a ton of individual running back Charger stock right now.
While we're at it, we can just hit a couple AFC West running back situations because it's kind of like they're cousins of it. The Zamir White thing for the Vegas, I think is extremely interesting because he's going late. He had 400 yards the last 4 games.
Yeah,
of the year.
And Josh Jacobs out of the picture.
Well, and just think about the Raiders. They let Jacobs won the NFL rushing title 2 years ago. They let him walk because they like Zamir White.
Yep.
And I think with Minshew and Devontae and Bowers, I'm not saying they're going to have like an elite offense, but they're going to be kind of fun. I think Zamir's a good option. And then also looking at Denver, your old boy you used to love.
Out on him.
You're out. He's been looking so good in camp.
I'm out. Javonte Williams, I am out.
Okay, he's been looking so good in camp. I'm wanting to maybe buy back. Yeah,
his tackle breaking numbers were legendary coming out of college, and he showed that the first year. And last year was regressed quite a bit. Jaleel McLaughlin eating into a lot of his share. I am out on basically all of Denver's offense. I think Bo Nix could be a serviceable QB3 in Superflex leagues, but I'm not buying too much Javonte Williams stock at this point. And then Pacheco. How high are you on Pacheco?
I like Pacheco a lot just because, I know that this is a stupid thing, the old eye test, but, man, you watch him play, he just pops off the screen, man. You just see that burst. He does justice to the KC number 10 jersey that Tyreek Hill left him. And I also said this when I talked about Mahomes, man. I think KC's evolved a little bit with the way their defense has emerged and the receivers aren't as good. They're running the ball more. They're not just, super wide open all the time anymore. And, I'm a big believer. The big thing on Pacheco, will he be the third down back this year?
Yeah, that's key. They haven't, at this point of taping, they have not re-signed Jerick McKinnon, who previously occupied that role.
Edwards-Helaire's still on the team, but that's a Jag too.
Yeah.
And so I'm big on Pacheco just because in that offense, and he had never gotten that crazy workload yet. They always have kind of watched it, but even with not a crazy workload, 11 or 1,200 yards and 8 to 11 touchdowns. That's pretty dang solid as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think the big thing with the AFC West running backs, biggest storyline is third down responsibilities. Like you said, is Pacheco going to handle it? Is Zamir White going to handle it? He got a couple catches. I think he had 9 catches the last 4 games, which is fair volume. Are those still going to exist? Because if those kind of go away, if the Chiefs re-sign McKinnon, if Zamir White is not the third down back, I think both of their stocks take a little bit of a hit. If we're assuming they both are good, which right now we are, I have Pacheco at RB9. I have Zamir White at RB15, which is 10 above ADP. Moody, where do you sit on the AFC West running backs?
Pacheco is my guy. I have him in my Dynasty League, my Keeper League. I made a trade for him a couple years ago to acquire him. Nobody, in my opinion, runs harder right now in the NFL than Isaiah Pacheco. I love watching him run the damn football. Andy Reid knows how to use running backs. We've seen the impact that McKinnon has made in the passing game, and it sounds like at the moment that Pacheco is going to have a significant part of that role. All the time, maybe not, but if he gets 60 to 70% of the third down snaps, this is going to be a huge boost to Isaiah Pacheco, a guy that freaking runs the ball hard. He's got elite speed. I love him. I'm going to be in on him. He'll be my number 2 pick in most of my standard leagues that I don't already have him. Very, very high on Isaiah Pacheco.
Where do you have him ranked in the running
I have him
backs?
at number 7.
I have him at 9. He's going right now at 11. I think that's pretty good. I think that you can take advantage of that value. I think he's certainly a top 10 running back. I don't know exactly if he's going to be 7, it's going to be 9, it's going to be 8, but I think he certainly represents good value there. Let's talk about zero running back strategy. So, sorry, you have something?
No, I just wanted to bring up real quick 2 of the top guys of the draft we hadn't mentioned yet. First of all, we have to have a little bit of a Bijan Robinson debate. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it at 5th or 6th overall. I get the upside. He has every athletic attribute you want. Last year people wanted to just thrash Arthur Smith on a weekly basis because of the Algier thing, and he didn't get all the carries. Obviously, Cousins is there. They're going to score more points. I'm not going down that rabbit hole having to take him 5th or 6th overall. I get the upside, but it's just too risky.
Bijan Robinson ADP is 2 right now as far as running backs. I have him 5th, 1 above Derrick Henry, which I don't think that that's a crazy take. I'm certainly not investing premium draft capital in a guy that's going to have competition in the backfield, Tyler Algier. Moody, where do you sit on Bijan?
Same thing. I mean, I owned him last year. I was one of those idiots that wasted a first-round pick thinking, hey, it's going to be the Bijan year. Here he comes. And it was never the case. I do think he's an elite talent. Don't get me wrong. This guy can flat out play football. But they never give him the damn football. You know, like it's just it was so frustrating watching them play. If he gets the volume, he could be running back number 1. I mean, he really does have that upside. The question is, will the Falcons get him that value or get him that volume? It remains to be seen.
So last year he finished as RB12 in half-point PPR. He finished below Rachaad White, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, James Cook. So certainly I think everybody sees the talent. When he breaks a long run, it's going to go on Twitter. People are going to get excited about it. Let's see how often that happens. I think he's good. I would not invest a first-round pick in him. He is an RB1. Certainly he's a top 10 or top 12 running back, whatever your league standards is. That being said, I would not feel great about him being my second-round pick and being like I think there's such a drop-off really after Christian McCaffrey and maybe Breece Hall.
Yeah, he's the first cousin of the Anthony Richardson situation because the upside's just like so big.
I mean, but we see more games, but like what he can do, but like is he going to get? I mean, there was a game against Tampa. I think he had 1 carry. By new coaching staff, everything. Raheem Morris, I think, is a very good coach, and I think they will use him. But like, let's pump the brakes on Bijan RB2.
And the other elite running back I got to bring up, and I know this is you love him, Cheah, and I don't want to steal your thunder because I'm going to let you talk about him first because you had mentioned him first. How hot the Jahmyr Gibbs thing?
Jahmyr Gibbs, I like. So we are taping this on August 14th, August 15th. He just got a hamstring injury. That is a huge concern in camp. I don't think it's going to be anything major. If he did not have this, he would be my RB2. I bumped him down 1 spot to RB3. This is a guy finished RB10 his rookie year, and he really didn't play the first couple weeks as far as any significant snaps. What I do like, and you go with the thunder and lightning with David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, and you figure David Montgomery is going to be the goal line back. From week 10 on, it was a 50-50 split on goal line carries, which is huge for a team that's going to play 14 of 17 games on your favorite fast track for this season.
Real thing. I mean, everybody laughs at me.
Absolutely. 52 catches, 316 yards last year, just 1 receiving touchdown. I think they're going to move him around. I think he's going to play in the slot. I think he's going to play a ton in the backfield, catching passes. I think they're going to run him a lot. Every week, the best prop to bet is Jahmyr Gibbs, the longest run over, whatever it is. If it's 14.5, 15.5. A lot of times it was 12.5 last year. That is a best bet. But he is super explosive. He is a top 3 running back for me, no doubt.
Yeah, I got him number 3. I love him too. The only factor you didn't mention that's an obvious one, the Lions got my favorite offensive line in football.
Yes, they have an incredible line.
They got a great offensive line, and I was really, really shocked that they were able to hold on to their offensive coordinator.
Ben Johnson.
Yeah, Ben Johnson was like such a hyped up guy. I thought he was going to get a head job, and then them being able to hold on to him, what he's been able to do with that offense. And I know what you mean on the Montgomery thing, but I agree. I felt, it was like that rookie thing where Gibbs is featured more and more, and I think but Montgomery's going to get phased out more and more. Yeah. Gibbs is lightning, catch the ball, they're going to score a ton of points. I honestly, I'm neck and neck with him and Taylor at 2-3. And Gibbs is, Cheah, one thing you talk about all the time that I agree with. When you look at these running backs, you want that young guy that's ascending as opposed to the 28-year-old. And Gibbs is hitting his prime, and he can do it. Other than the hamstring injury, there's just nothing I don't love about it.
Hopefully, and again, we're taping this, whatever it is, August 14th, August 15th. Hopefully, by the time this comes out, there's a little more clarity. He is good. If so, he would be my RB2. Right now, with a little uncertainty, I bumped him down slightly, but he is absolutely right there. I would be very comfortable with him as an RB1. I would use a first-round pick on him if I'm in like the 9 to 12 range. All right, let's talk about zero running back strategy.
Yes.
Is this something that this year you would go with? So zero running back strategy is a strategy where you don't invest any premium capital in running backs. There's no set rule with you can't draft them in the first 4 rounds, 5 rounds, 6 rounds, whatever. But you're going to invest in receivers mainly, and quarterbacks, tight ends, sure, but you're not going to use any premium picks on running backs. Do you think this is a viable strategy this year?
My thing on it is the running back depth. I still think I'm going to take, one of these second round guys. I don't think I'm like I already said.
So then you're not in on it.
I guess I'm not in on it then. But But I'm not going to draft 2 running backs my first 3 or 4 picks.
Okay, so you're going with the hero RB strategy is to draft one guy and you hope he gets the lion's share.
Yeah. I'll go hero, and I'm not taking. I'm probably going to take an elite receiver with my first round pick unless I have the number 1 pick, and then I'm running. It's
got to be McCaffrey.
I'm running the board, take McCaffrey. But the thing is, I like about it is I look at this running back thing, and you look at the depth. There's just all kinds of guys in the teens that I have no problem starting. I mean. We didn't mention James Cook yet. He's number 12 on the rankings I'm looking at. Like, dude, he was awesome down the stretch. Once Joe Brady took over play call and they started running the ball, he's a guy that could be my RB1, and I'd be totally fine with it. Travis Etienne's like a 3rd or 4th round pick. Super solid. I know you like Rachaad White from Tampa. There's just all kinds of guys like that I'm just totally fine with rolling out as my RB1 this year. That, I'm not, I guess not, maybe 3rd, 4th round picks, but I just think the depth at running back, we mentioned Zamir White. He's like, going mid-20s. He's a dude that I could think would be fine. We also didn't touch on the Cincinnati thing with Zach Moss or Chase Brown. If one of those guys steps up, they could be – there's just a lot of – I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'm not comfortable on the zero running back thing totally, but I'm buying into the running back depth theory to where I'm not panicking and – hitting my capital early in the draft.
And to be clear with the zero running back strategy, I would never go into a draft and just be like, I'm drafting zero. Because if you get the first pick, like, you got to draft Christian McCaffrey. I think this is something where if you have a mid to late first round pick, I would consider. And, depending on the board, if Jahmyr Gibbs falls to the mid-second round, I'm going to pull the trigger on that. Like, no doubt about it. But Moody, where do you stand on zero running back strategy, especially this season?
I think it is viable this season. I will be going hero running back strategy just because that tends to be how I play to begin with. I get the one running back, and then I'm going to find my value later with another guy. But I do think it's viable this year. I mean, really and truly, you could go I kind of like the Ford and Chubb situation late. You pair them with I know you don't like him. I kind of like Javonte Williams just a little bit.
That's fine.
But, there's guys down at the back end that you can make it work with if you do decide to go zero running back. So I think it's viable this year. It's not for me.
This strategy is much more effective in PPR with running backs that catch passes. So 3rd down backs who can be starters if they get, 4 catches a game. That automatically is 4 points plus the yardage. So I think that zero running back strategy is best in PPR because that also accentuates the value of receivers. But even a half-point PPR, I think this is a good strategy this year. I look at guys that are, ranked in my 20s, like a Jalen Warren or like a David Montgomery, like these type of guys, like a Tajay Spears. These type of guys where if you draft zero RB, you're going to see your roster after it and just be like, ugh. You're not super comfortable. But we're not assuming, again, it's August, it's early September. Everyone is healthy right now. Running backs get hurt. They get hurt a lot. They're going to miss games, most of them. So you kind of have to figure out the sweet spot. You got to spend your waiver budget on running backs. You got to draft a lot of, flyer guys, and hopefully 1 or 2 of them work out. But I think this is a great year for zero running back. And I think there's going to be a lot of depth. Guys that we aren't even talking about now, like, if you it wouldn't be for zero running back because you draft Breece Hall early, but like a Braylon Allen type guy who's, a backup in New York, but has looked really explosive. Good reports throughout camp. Bucky Irving in Tampa, who's going to be, potentially a 3rd down back and definitely get more in the mix with Rachaad White this year. So there are guys that are young, unproven that you can take flyers on and succeed. I think this is a good year for it.
I think in a super flex league that starts 2 quarterbacks, it becomes a more viable strategy too. And also, I'll just go ahead and mention who is the zero RB guy for this year. And it's a guy that has been getting drafted first round for years. Dude, Austin Eckler is like ranked like mid-30s running back this year.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, with Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels, that's not a team that's going to play the most power football with Robinson. Eckler's going to be out there catching balls. They're going to be playing wide open. Like, I feel like if I was in a zero running back, like that's a classic example of one. I think he's going to – I don't know if they're going to use him around the goal line the way the Chargers did.
Right, with Brian Robinson. Yeah.
But I just can't believe, like, people are acting like the guy died.
Yeah, Austin Eckler's
like,
been
on that
great.
Commanders team, like, I think he could catch a lot of balls, and I think they paid it. I don't know. I think they're going to use him.
That's a great point. Let's talk about breakouts for this year from the running back position. Mintzy, who do you got?
Well, I mean, I already mentioned Gibbs. That's too I guess the Gibbs thing is like
his ADP is 5, so
for
at
James
3.
Cook, then I'm going to go James Cook because I think Cook could be like, I've got him at RB7, but he could be top 5. The only thing, there's a couple knocks. The Josh Allen goal line thing's a problem.
Yeah.
Because when they get down to the goal line, they power it in. But Buffalo, Cook down the stretch he literally was cooking. I think he was improving a little bit catching the ball. Like at first I was a little struggling. He kind of showed some flashes of that. But I think Buffalo is just, since Joe Brady, they fired Dorsey, and right when Brady went in there, the running the football became a bigger priority for that football team.
Yep.
And I just feel like Cook, I'm seeing him at like 12th, 13th in the rankings, and I think that's ridiculous. I mean, I don't know if he'll get the volume to have a shot at it, but like if they give him big volume, I mean, he can run for 1,300 yards.
Yeah. My breakout guy, talked about him a little bit, Rachaad White. This guy finished last year as RB8, 203.9 fantasy points and a half-point PPR. He finished 10.5 points behind Breece Hall. And obviously, Breece Hall, some restrictions with Zach Wilson, stacked box, that type of stuff. But this is a guy who's going to be a bell cow back. I mentioned Bucky Irving's going to get a little bit of run, but Rachaad White plays on third downs. He can block, which is huge, and not all rookie running backs can do it. Bucky Irving is 192 pounds. Let's see if he can play third down as far as pass blocking, which is very important. And they're going to have a very much improved run game. I cannot emphasize this enough. A very much improved run game in Tampa. Rachaad White is going to be the bell cow there. I like him. His ADP is 13 right now. I have him 7. I have him 1 below Derrick Henry, 1 above Kyron Williams, and above Isaiah Pacheco for me. So I think Rachaad White is due for huge. I don't think is necessarily going to be, while I say, there's knocks on him about efficiency, he's going to be a volume guy. I think they are going to be more efficient. Rachaad White, I think, is a great value right now. ADP 13, I have him the top 7 guy.
My breakouts, I've got, so PPR, I'm going Eckler. I mean, it's not a breakout necessarily, but it's a guy you're getting way down in the draft at this point for the value that he could present for you. And then standard, I'm going a guy that you said you're fading. It's Javonte Williams.
Okay.
Look, this is a backfield that got 500 touches last year between runs and passes. I mean, Williams, from everything that we've heard, he looks electric right now in camp. He looks like his old self. But that's just camp news. You gotta put it together in the games. I understand that.
Everybody's in the best shape of their life.
Right, no doubt. But if it all turns out to be true, this is going to be the guy in this backfield. I don't really love McLaughlin and company. They're just guys. Javonte Williams could have a breakout season if he gets the volume. And this is a team that wants to run the football. They're going to want to take care of Bo Nix, some play action stuff. I like Javonte Williams in standard. I like Eckler in PPR.
Okay. Busts. Let's talk about running backs you are avoiding this year in your fantasy drafts. Mintzy, who you got?
I mean, bust is such a strong term, but I mean, I already mentioned it. I just the Bijan being the 5th or 6th overall pick. I just can't.
Where do you have Bijan ranked?
I've got him as my RB6.
Okay.
I mean, I like him. I don't think he's not going to be good.
Sure.
So bust is a strong term, but I can't be having him. The 5th, he's going like 5th or 6th overall. That one specifically is just too much for me with his ranking.
Moody, who do you have as a bust?
I don't necessarily love calling this guy a bust, but I just don't think he's going to reach his ADP. That's Kyron Williams for me.
Okay.
I think they're going to throw the football around better. The Rams, Stafford's healthy once again. They've added a weapon on the outside. From everything we've heard, Cooper Kupp is back to form. So I think they're going to throw the football around more. Kyron Williams was really boosted by some huge touchdown games. I just don't know that he's going to be able to replicate that. So I'm not saying he's going to be a huge bust. I just don't think he's going to reach his ADP for where he's at. He's a guy that I'm not comfortable with that high.
Potential competition too from Blake Corum. Not that he's going to push him for starting reps, but I think he should eat into his share.
And the Rams have also said they want to limit Kyron's workload.
Yeah,
that's already been established.
I have a bust. It is a guy who has had over 1,005 yards twice in 6 years. He hasn't had over 350 yards receiving in 4 years. He averaged 3.9 yards per carry last year. He's being drafted right now, ADP 4 among running backs. His name is Saquon Barkley. And I understand he's going to a brand new offense, much better line. They're going to run the ball. Saquon Barkley is not that dude. He was drafted with the 2nd overall pick, and general manager at the time, Dave Gettleman, saying we want to get a Hall of Fame guy with our 2nd pick. And New York media buzzing up Saquon. He has been great. He had a great rookie year. He's like right around 2,000 all-purpose yards. He has not been that guy for years. And blame it on Daniel Jones, blame it on Brian Daboll, blame it on whoever you want. Saquon Barkley is not a relevant fantasy asset and has not been for a while. As far as like 1st or 2nd round guy. This is a guy who consistently disappoints. So if you want to draft Saquon Barkley with a 1st or 2nd round pick, that is on you because I am staying the hell away from Saquon Barkley. He is my RB 13 this year.
It's the first time that we've really disagreed, Cheah. I've been right there with you on everything. This is one I can't get behind. I think Saquon he's had some injuries. I can't get past the fact that he's played with one of the worst offensive lines in football, one of the worst quarterbacks around him. I truly think they're going to get him in this offense, and he's going to have a very, very solid season, and he can catch the football out of the backfield.
He's a Twitter running back. His highlights look incredible.
He's a Twitter running back.
His highlights look incredible. Very few have highlights as good as him. He has a lot of 0-yard runs. He has a lot of negative runs. He has a lot of 1 or 2 yard runs.
Because he was playing for the Giants, bro.
Blame it on coaching and everything. All you want. The Giants were very good. The Giants won a playoff game 2 years ago.
Fair.
Where's Saquon Barkley's numbers? Again, 3.9 yards per carry last year. Has had over 1,005 rushing yards twice in 6 years. And everyone's saying he can catch the ball. Absolutely, he can. He hasn't had over 350 receiving yards in 4 years. To put that into perspective, Rachaad White last year, 64 catches, 549 yards. So go with the sexy name in Saquon Barkley all you want. I am staying the hell away.
I will probably not be drafting him. I just don't think he's going to be quite the bust that you do. That's my opinion.
I mean, I have him as RB 13, so it's not like I would not draft him. I have one above James Cook, one below Achane. But as far as RB4, hell no.
Sure.
All right, that's going to wrap our Fantasy Football Factory preview for running backs. Thank you to DraftKings. Thank you to King of South Mintzy, Moody behind the sticks, producing social clips, great insight in fantasy. We will see you guys next week for wide receivers and tight ends.
Follow at FF Pod on Twitter and Instagram and all social.
Thanks, guys. See you next week.